being said, let's get started. Hello and welcome to this Morpheus Tech Brief. My name is Martez Reed, Director of Technical Marketing with Morpheus Data. And in this technical brief, we're going to walk through the updates in the latest LTS release of the Morpheus platform, which is Morpheus 6.0. What we'll be covering is the difference between the last LTS of Morpheus Data and this LTS. So accommodating for features that may have been backported or added into previous LTS, those will not be included. Only net new features or capabilities in this LTS that our LTS customers did not receive in the last LTS. So we're going to walk through the various feature sets. But before we do that, let's walk through the Morpheus platform briefly as we talk about the updates. We're going to categorize them into these sections or categories that we typically talk about when we talk about the Morpheus platform. Hybrid cloud management is one of the key facets of the Morpheus platform, being able to provision and manage workloads both on-prem as well as in the public cloud. So being able to integrate with platforms like vSphere, AWS, Azure, GCP, so forth and so on, provides the cloud management capability within the Morpheus platform. Container management. Morpheus platform does support the ability to be able to integrate with Docker containers or Docker clusters, as well as Kubernetes clusters, both from a visibility and management standpoint. Infrastructure automation. This category can be broken or subdivided into infrastructure as code with tooling such as HashiCorp Terraform, as well as the automation capabilities within the Morpheus platform to be able to execute things like Ansible playbooks, PowerShell scripts, shell scripts, both during the provisioning of workloads as well as day two for those workloads, but also outside the context of even workloads themselves to perform operations that may hit an API endpoint as well. And then finally, tying into IT service management or ITSM to be able to align with enterprise practices for things like change management as well as asset management via CMDB as well. So with that backdrop, let's get started talking about what's new in the Morpheus platform in the 6.0 LTS release of the platform. Before we jump into that, let's talk about the release cycle changes that have been made. So many of us are aware from previous versions of the Morpheus platform that there is an LTS or long-term support version of the Morpheus platform, as well as what we term as a standard release of the platform. And what that means is that the LTS or long-term support version of the Morpheus platform will get bug fixes, updates, and patches primarily around to maintenance of that particular release for a 24-month period. This allows our customers that are inclined to stay on a release of the platform that is unlikely to change within that period significantly as it relates to the addition of new features. This provides that stability that many of our customers are looking for. But in addition to that, many of our customers are also utilizing and leveraging the standard release of the Morpheus platform, which will include new features and new capabilities to take advantage of the innovations that Morpheus is continuing to add into the Morpheus platform. What the change really means for this case is that the LTS will continue to be the LTS, but what will happen now is there will be 2 LTS releases in a given year. So the release that we're talking about right now is the 6.0 LTS of the Morpheus platform. Later this year, there will be a 6.2 LTS release of the Morpheus platform. And moving forward, each year will receive 2 LTS releases of the Morpheus platform. Each of those releases will be supported for the 24-month period that has been defined as part of the LTS support policy. In addition to that, we also have the standard release. There have been updates to the standard release of the Morpheus platform that include a monthly patching process. And so previously with the standard release of the Morpheus platform, releases were, new versions of a given standard release were distributed when there was a need for that. What's happening now is that the standard release of the Morpheus platform will receive those same updates and maintenance fixes on a monthly cadence to allow our customers that would like to take advantage of the new innovations in the standard release to take advantage of it, but also get the maintenance fixes as part of that process. And so that'll be released essentially every odd quarter in a given year. So if we take a look at this slide right here, we see as an example, if we start at the beginning of the year, there's going to be an LTS release. And then in the Q2 timeframe, or the second quarter of the year, there will be a standard release. And then in the third quarter of the year, there'll be another LTS release. And then in the fourth quarter, there will be a standard release of the platform. That standard release will be supported essentially for 3 months, with the expectation that there'll be the transition to the next LTS, or as the next standard release of the platform comes out. So now that we've walked through a bit of the new release cycle and understanding the changes that have been made, let's dig into the updates within the Morpheus platform. So we're going to start with the core platform. We talked about those 4 areas of the Morpheus platform: hybrid cloud management, container management, infrastructure automation, as well as IT service management. These facets, or the features that we're going to talk about now, really underpin all of those aspects from a capability or functionality standpoint within the Morpheus platform. So, new default dashboard. So when a user logs into the Morpheus platform, they're presented with a dashboard. In previous versions of the Morpheus platform, there was a dashboard that was there. And what we've done is updated that dashboard to include some richer visualizations, as well as some additional information from a visibility standpoint brought into the Morpheus UI. One of the major benefits is there's a system status for those users. Typically, it's going to be administrators that have access to that particular permission to now be able to log in and view at a glance some of the quick health information to view whether the Morpheus deployment or installation is healthy or not. So it certainly provides a new updated look and feel to the Morpheus UI once a user initially logs into the platform. Another thing that's really exciting is the addition of object labels within the Morpheus platform. So Morpheus has constructs such as automation tasks, workflows, instance types, instance layouts, blueprints, all these various components. And what's been added now is the ability to be able to add a label of custom metadata to those given objects that allows them to be able to be sorted and filtered by those given labels within the Morpheus platform. So what this does is allow you to be able to associate things like maybe it's a certain project that you want to associate with certain tasks or workflows within the Morpheus platform to be able to ensure that you're able to quickly find what it is that you're looking for within the platform. Additionally, MySQL 8 support has been added to the Morpheus platform. And so what this means is that Morpheus can be deployed onto a MySQL 8 database. Currently, the platform does not come packaged with a MySQL 8 installation at the moment due to some issues identified with certain versions of MySQL 8. But the platform does support the deployment. Certainly, that's something that you would contact either support or your account team about which versions of MySQL 8 may be having issues before you go through the process of updating or upgrading to the next version of the LTS. And then you're looking to utilize MySQL 8 as part of that. Continuing on, instance detail UI updates. So the Morpheus platform provides users with the ability to be able to manage and interact with workloads that they provision or deployed utilizing Morpheus. One of the goals of the Morpheus platform is to enable that in a self-service fashion. And to that point, what's been done is updates have been made to that page that a user sees when they go to access or manage an instance. And so in this case, there's a number of things that have been updated with new visualizations for performance metrics, as well as the ability to even be able to go back further in time from a performance metric standpoint to be able to go back 30, 60, 90 days or so within those particular metrics. Additionally, being able to see a costing breakdown as desired that is controlled based upon role-based access. So a user can be able to see a breakdown of the pricing or cost of the workload within the platform. Additionally, the software inventory has been pulled up into the instance details. Previously, there was the need to drill down into the underlying server component to be able to view the software inventory, but that has now been brought up or pulled up into the instance details page to be able to view that from within the platform. Support has been added for IPv6 IP address pools. Previously, the Morpheus platform has had support for IPv4 within the platform. Now support has been added for adding IPv6 address pools to the platform. Regex-based input validation within the Morpheus platform. So this allows for a regex-based validation to be performed for text and text area inputs or option types within the Morpheus platform to allow administrators to be able to perform a level of validation to the input that a user is providing as part of a given request. RBAC UI and UX enhancements. So one of the big benefits of the Morpheus platform is the granular role-based access control. And so that's continuing to get even more granular. In particular, there are things related to management of instances that new features have been exposed for administrators to be able to control or restrict the level of access that a given user has to a given operation. So what we see here on the slide is that there's a number of new permissions that have been added around instance management, things like power control, additional reconfiguration operations that may or may not need to be restricted. So once again, providing that more detailed or granular level of control over what a given user may be able to manage within the platform. Additionally, the layout, look and feel of the permissions section has been updated to include things like categories. So one of the things we see on this particular slide or this image is that there is now additional categories for things like lifecycle. And so what that does is allows administrators to be able to toggle essentially what they're viewing within the Morpheus platform and reduce the feeling of being overwhelmed by the number of permissions that are available within the Morpheus platform. Additionally, there's the ability to be able to select on a given section or category. One of the things we see here with the lifecycle category is that there is an option to be able to select the given level of permission. So once again, continuing to provide a better administrator experience as it relates to assigning and associating permissions within the platform. And then finally, also the ability to be able to search for a given feature permission that you might want to grant a user access to. Really all about making that administrator experience much simpler and easier. Additionally, the ability to manage roles from the master tenant has been added to allow organizations that have a multi-tenant architecture to be able to simplify their management of roles within subtenants from the master tenant without needing to log directly into or impersonate a user within the subtenant to manage some of those roles. Credential store integration support. Morpheus platform added the credential store feature in the last LTS 5.4 with the ability to be able to centralize the credentials for given constructs. So one of the ones that is particularly powerful is the ability to be able to have a single set of credentials for, let's say, as an example, AWS clouds. For customers that need to add multiple regions into the platform, there was the ability that was added to be able to specify a single credential set and then be able to reutilize that across multiple cloud integrations within the platform. This extends that capability to be able to centralize credentials within the Morpheus platform to integrations for things like IP address management, DNS, to once again continue to simplify the administrator experience of managing the Morpheus platform. Additionally, there have been two essentially backends that have been added for the credential store utilizing plugin architecture, HashiCorp Vault, as well as CyberArk Conjure. Those two plugins are available at share.morpheusdata.com for download and can be installed into a Morpheus installation that is running the latest LTS. But what those provide is the ability to be able to essentially offload the storage of those given credentials to those secrets management platforms, HashiCorp Vault, as well as CyberArk Conjure. The ability to create and manage OAuth clients within the Morpheus platform has been added. What this provides is the ability to be able to add new OAuth clients that essentially allow the capability to be able to generate API tokens and utilize those in a programmatic fashion. What's now been available in addition to adding them is the ability to manage the duration or lifetime default for those tokens. So as an example, the current default for the duration or lifetime of the token is 1 year. There may be a need to specify that you do not want that to be a year. You want that to be 30 days or 60 days or 90 days as part of alignment with security practices within your organization. Additionally, there is technically also the ability to specify that you may want it to be a longer period of time over and above that 1 year as part of the process that your organization has for managing API tokens or credentials. So this certainly allows flexibility, both either to shorten the duration or to lengthen the duration of time that the API token is valid as part of the process. Native integration plugin migration. So what that means is that there are a number of integrations within the Morpheus platform that have been ported out, so to speak, to a plugin. They are included with the Morpheus installer by default. So as an example, in this particular installation, on the screen, we have under the plugin section, we have several plugins. Previously, those were native integrations in the Morpheus platform. But what's been done now, and will continue to be done, is integrations will be moved out into plugins. They will be bundled with the Morpheus platform to simplify the installation, as well as configuration of the Morpheus platform. But what this offers is the ability for us to be able to iterate and update the integrations out of band, in many cases, of the installation of Morpheus. So what this means is that, let's say if there were an issue with the Blue Cat IP address management integration within the Morpheus platform, and there was a need to add a fix to that particular integration. In many cases, there may be the ability to be able to apply that fix specifically to the Blue Cat integration, and then our customers can take that new version of the Blue Cat integration plugin and be able to take advantage of that fix without upgrading the entire Morpheus platform. So it certainly includes a number of benefits to both us as well as to both our customers to be able to take advantage of the plugin architecture within the Morpheus platform. Additionally, technically three new providers have been added to the Morpheus platform, the plugin architecture. Providers for backups as well as load balancers have been added into the platform to add a custom backup integration as well as a custom load balancer integration into the Morpheus platform. The ability to develop custom dashboards has been added into the Morpheus platform. So one of the things we talked about on the first slide was the new default dashboard. That included new visualizations, new data into the Morpheus platform. There was also the ability, utilizing plugins, to be able to add a custom dashboard into the Morpheus platform, where you can fully customize the look and the feel of the dashboard when users initially log into the Morpheus platform. As part of this, you can go completely custom, where everything is something that you define, but there's also the ability to be able to utilize many of the various widgets that you see in the new default dashboard, where you might decide that, you know what, I like these 5 widgets. I want to add them into my dashboard, but I do want to add some additional pieces of data into the dashboard when users log in to provide contextual information for my given environment. The service catalog has received a number of updates that we're really excited about in this release of the Morpheus platform. One particular one is the ability to be able to sort and filter essentially on categories within the service catalog. One of the things that our customers have run into is, as their catalog grows within the platform, there might be several pages of catalog items. And then there's a need for users to be able to better filter those given items. what can now be done is that a category can be associated with catalog items that can then be utilized to filter the catalog that a given user sees. And so in this example, we have the category of Azure, which filters this particular catalog to this single item in this case that has a Azure category associated with it. The categories that are defined are custom. So whatever you desire to define can be defined as part of the category process. So once again, continuing to provide a richer experience. Additionally, order history has been added into the service catalog persona. Previously, it was inventory. And so there's been a change to order history. And what that means is that there is a view of the history of orders, not simply the items that are currently active. And so what this does is also provides the ability to be able to reorder previously ordered items as long as the item is still available to that given user. And then additionally be able to drill down into that item via the order history. Service catalog persona permissions. What this means is the service catalog persona, which provides a simplified experience within the Morpheus platform. So we've got the service catalog persona, as well as the standard persona, and then finally the VDI persona. But what this does is pares down what the end user sees to simply that simplified catalog. And what's been made available now is in this particular image, we see that there are instances, apps, and executions. Based upon the level of access that a user has been given, those particular items will show up. And what that provides is the ability to be able to manage the full life cycle of a particular object or resource that's been deployed or provisioned via the service catalog without the need to have to switch into the standard persona or stay in the service catalog persona and then be limited from a functionality standpoint to some of the operations that can be performed on a provisioned workload. So once again, it's dependent upon the level of access that the user has been granted, whether those particular new items will show up in their service catalog persona. And then finally, quantity has been added to service catalog items during the order process. So you can order, let's say, 3 or 4 of something during the provisioning process. All right, moving on to hybrid cloud. So this is where we talked about the hybrid cloud management capability of the Morpheus platform. One of the features that has been added into the platform is zone pool groups. So what this does is similar to other grouping constructs that are available in the Morpheus platform, things like the networks, to be able to group together those zone pools into a single entity that can then be exposed or utilized for provisioning. In this case, this adds additional intelligence to where it could also either be round robin or available capacity. And so this would allow you to be able to expose that zone pool group to the end user and then be able to utilize either mode on the back end in terms of selection of the underlying zone pool. Custom icons can also be utilized or leveraged for cloud integrations. So when you go to add or update a cloud integration, now a custom icon can be utilized, in particular for those service providers that may desire to white label or abstract the underlying technology type that's being utilized from the end consumer or end customer, or simply provide something that is more in line with the offering that they're providing. New guidance has been added for AWS orphaned volumes. So in the guidance recommendations or guidance section within the Morpheus UI, there's also now the ability to see unattached or orphaned EBS volumes, particularly valuable from a cost saving standpoint, given that unattached EBS volumes have the associated cost. And if they're not cleaned up, they will continue to add a cost to your organization's cloud spend. So this provides the ability to be able to see it, but also the ability to be able to go in utilizing the Morpheus UI and then be able to delete that volume if desired from the Morpheus UI. Azure agentless guidance. So similar to what we saw on the other slide where we talked about guidance recommendations, the Azure cloud integration previously required the Morpheus agent to be installed to pull back guidance recommendations. That requirement is no longer in place for the latest LTS of the Morpheus platform. So that guidance recommendations can be pulled back without the need for installing the Morpheus agent. Azure Boot Diagnostics custom storage. So this allows the ability to select a custom storage account during provisioning of Azure workloads from the Morpheus platform. Previously, it was tied to simply the default storage account. So now this provides the ability to be able to select a custom storage account. Nutanix Prism Central cloud integration has reached alpha status. So there is a Nutanix Prism Central plugin that is available on share.morpheusdata.com that can be utilized to add a Nutanix Prism Central cloud into the Morpheus platform. Once again, it is alpha status, so it's continuing to be developed, but certainly can be utilized for testing and evaluation as we continue to develop the integration from a Morpheus standpoint. GCP Terraform mapping. So within the Morpheus platform, there is the ability to integrate with HashiCorp Terraform open source to be able to provision workloads in on-prem clouds as well as public clouds. This adds formal support for GCP as it relates to our mapping capabilities, and this provides the capability to leverage the rich integrations that were available on other clouds like AWS from an automation and capability standpoint. Support for custom machine types has been added. GCP has the construct or concept of custom machine types, which allow users to specify a custom hardware specification for things like CPU and memory. Morpheus has added support from a provisioning as well as a discovery standpoint for GCP custom machine type instances. And then finally, GCP public virtual machine image support has been added. So there's now the ability within the Morpheus platform to select an image type of public image to utilize or leverage a public image provided by GCP and its associated partners. Floating IP address management has been added into the Morpheus platform to be able to gain visibility into IP addresses, floating IP addresses in attached clouds. OpenStack Terraform mapping support, similar to what we talked about from a GCP standpoint, OpenStack has been added as a supported cloud from a Terraform mapping perspective. And then finally, Oracle Cloud full tag sync. So tags are now bidirectionally synced for Oracle Cloud and Morpheus. So tags created in Morpheus are going to be populated in Oracle Cloud, and it's conversely, tags created in Oracle Cloud will now be synced into the Morpheus platform. All right, before we jump into infrastructure automation, we'll take a look at, answer a few questions, and we'll continue on from there. Will these slides be available for download? Certainly, we'll look to provide a place to download these slides on the Morpheus Data website. Where it will live, certainly we'll have to get that, but I will we'll add that into the description in the YouTube video for you all to be able to download the slides. All right. Will the regex validation show errors when the input does not match the regex that's been set? Right now, yes, it will show errors. One of the things we are looking at is a more user-friendly error message, the ability to be able to expose a more user-friendly error message. Because typically what's exposed now is that, let's say, the input does not match whatever your given regex string is. So the end user will know that they are being provided with an error and that the input does not match what has been required. The challenge right now is that the message exposed to the user may not be all that intuitive in terms of what they actually should provide. Let's take a look. Going through a few more questions. All right, so we've got a question about the OAuth clients. Are the clients still user scoped, or are these user list service accounts, basically? So from the client standpoint, those will still be the clients that show up for all of the users. So you can add the manage the existing clients. And so those can be modified in terms of the duration for those clients. But when you do go to add a new client, that will be exposed to all of the users within the platform. I got a question about, is there a plan to improve IPv6 functionality? There certainly is. Certainly the community forum is a great place to suggest ideas for specific use cases that you're seeing that would be beneficial to others within the Morpheus community. So certainly discuss.morpheusdata.com is a great place to submit ideas about improvements that could be made to the IPv6 integration within the Morpheus platform. All right, let's keep it moving on to infrastructure automation. I'll come back and answer some more questions as they come through, but I do want to be mindful of time and keep things rolling. So infrastructure automation. So as I mentioned within the Morpheus platform, infrastructure automation includes both infrastructure as code as well as automation orchestration. In particular, there are a number of really exciting updates in the 6.0 LTS as it relates to the automation and orchestration capabilities within the Morpheus platform. So one of the major ones that's been added is the ability to be able to restrict access to automation tasks and workflows within the platform. So we see here on the permissions section of a given role, there's new tabs for workflows as well as tasks to be able to specify which task or workflows that a given user, in this case, given role, can be granted. Cinnamers offers a number of benefits within the Morpheus platform, in particular as it relates to reducing what an end user may have access to from an automation standpoint. So when a user goes to provision via the standard persona, there's the workflow section that can be attached to a given workload that would be reduced or pared down to simply what the user has access to. When a user goes to perform an operation from a self-service standpoint, so they go to instance details page and they go to select that they want to run a task or a workflow, the list of options that are presented to them are scoped to exactly what they have access to within the Morpheus platform. Additionally, when looking at providing a capability across multiple teams within a single tenant, this means that given teams will only have access to the automation tasks or workflows that they've been granted access to as part of the Morpheus platform. In addition to that, there have been UX updates as it relates to some of those things I talked about as far as self-service automation, as well as that selecting of workflows during provisioning. So previously, it was a drop-down list or a select list of items when you went to run a task against an instance utilizing the instance details page. That has been changed, as well as in various other places within the Morpheus platform when you need to go execute or add automation, either a task or a workflow. It's been changed from a select list, which is a drop down, to a type ahead to allow a richer experience as it relates to selecting the item without having to deal with a lot of overhead of trying to go through a drop down list and find the exact one that you want. Nested workflows. So a new task type has been added into the Morpheus platform for nested workflows. And so when you go to add a new task, in addition to the previous ones that were available like Ansible Playbook, Ansible Tower Job, Python script, there's a nested workflow task type. What this will do is allow you to be able to add an existing workflow to a new workflow. This is particularly valuable when you have a number of tasks in a workflow that essentially compose a base set of capabilities or functionality that is applicable to really, let's say, all instances or all scenarios in your particular environment or use case. And then if there's a need to extend that slightly for a specific use case, previously what's been needed to be done is you would add all of those same base tasks, and then you would add the 2 or 3 additional tasks that you needed for that particular use case. This allows you to be able to add the workflow, an entity itself, to that new workflow, and then simply add those 2 or 3 new tasks that you want for that specific use case, greatly reducing time from an administrative perspective, but also allowing you to be able to update and manage those in a simpler fashion, in which when you go to update, let's say the base workflow, you may want to add or remove a task to that workflow. That will then be populated, in essence, to any of the other workflows that make usage of that particular workflow. Approval workflow, operational workflow approvals within the Morpheus platform. So Morpheus platform has provisioning workflows that are typically tied to the life cycle of a workload. So it has different phases for provisioning and decommissioning, those various aspects. Additionally, the Morpheus platform includes the ability to have operational workflows that can be executed against workloads, but does not necessarily have to be, and is more for that ad hoc or that scheduled use of automation. This now provides the ability to be able to create approvals before those are executed. This is particularly valuable when you start talking about scaling automation across an enterprise organization, particularly in a self-service fashion. Now there's the ability to be able to have things like a catalog item for an operational workflow, but now require that there be an approval process that's associated with that particular workflow. So the approval supports the same mechanisms that other approvals within the approval policies within the platform support, such as the internal approvals, as well as approvals via ITSM platforms such as ServiceNow. A new Jenkins task type is available at share.morpheusdata.com to be able to add as a task type within a workflow or execute simply by itself that can be utilized to trigger the execution or build of a Jenkins job. This offers a number of possibilities as it relates to could be utilized during the provisioning of a workload to then trigger a Jenkins job to perform some validation or various operations from a software deployment standpoint. Could be utilized as part of a broader process that may tie in a Jenkins job that does perform some additional operational steps. So really a number of possibilities are available as part of that. Automation retry. This is really valuable in scenarios where you have a situation where there is a provisioning workflow attached to a workload. And then there's a case where maybe one of the tasks fails for, let's say, an environmental reason. Maybe there's an outage with something, or maybe there's an issue that's going on that you can easily remediate or easily fix. Now this provides the ability to be able to hit retry on that particular task. And then once that task has been successfully completed, then all of the subsequent tasks as part of that workflow will be completed. One of the challenges that many of our customers have faced is that they'll deploy a workload, and then halfway through the provisioning of the workload, something will hiccup or something will fail. And then now they're forced to have to delete that instantiation of the workload and start all over again. So what this does is allow that ability to be able to essentially hit the retry for that particular task or that operation, and then allow the provisioning or automation to proceed on. Task multi-tenancy. So automation tasks can now be shared to subtenants within the Morpheus platform. This was previously available for automation workflows and has now been added to automation tasks as well, for those that desire to be able to share certain tasks down to subtenants within the platform. Provisioning workflow pricing phase. A new phase has been added to provisioning workflows within the Morpheus platform, specifically focused on being able to update in a dynamic fashion the price associated with a given resource. So there we desire to use some custom logic to determine the price for a given resource or given object, and then utilize that to set the price for a given resource on the fly. Dynamic automation targets within the Morpheus platform provide the ability to be able to utilize those labels that we talked about, object labels that are associated with workloads, to be able to specify the scope of the automation execution. This is particularly valuable when we talk about things like scheduled automation within the Morpheus platform. I may have certain labels applied to workloads that designate things like a patching group or certain servers, my Linux database servers or my production web servers. And I can utilize those tags to specify when I execute the automation. Previously, without the dynamic automation targets, what was required was adding each of those workloads manually to a given job. And if there was a new workload that appeared, you would have to add that workload to the particular job in order to ensure that it executed against those. Now, with the use of labels, this can be done in a dynamic fashion. So in the event that, let's say there are 10 servers with the label Linux production, and then I add in another 5 servers are provisioned. Well, since we're utilizing the label for referencing, those another additional 5 servers will also be targeted the next time the automation runs. If I delete 14 of those 15 servers, that single server or that single instance will still be targeted as part of the automation. So it really allows the great flexibility in terms of targeting the execution of automation against the workloads. And then finally, workflow cancellation. So the platform has added the ability to be able to cancel a workflow during the execution. What this does is it stops the execution of the workflow after the currently running task has been completed. So if I have a workflow of 15 tasks and I want to stop it after task 3, once task 3 has been completed, the workflow will essentially stop and any of the subsequent tasks will not be executed for that given workflow. All right, before we jump into container management, let's take a look at some of the questions. All right, is the code added to the standard release also added to the LTS version? So it's a great question. So if we take the example of where we're at now, which is 6.0 LTS, 6.1.0 was actually released, I believe, last week. The code that goes into 6.1 will not be backported to 6.0 LTS. Where it will show up in an LTS is when the 6.2 LTS is released later this year. And so its features are going to move forward into the next LTS. They're not going to be backported. So it's a great question. Can automation restrictions be by group as well as by user? Restrictions by group or by user. So the automation permissions are tied to the given role. And so the level of access is going to be based upon that. And how you associate users or user groups to that role is going to determine that level of access. It is not specifically tied to a user or a user group. Got a question of, can we define custom dashboard per user? That is on the horizon. It is not currently available to be able to specify a dashboard per user. Now, how that looks like from a technical implementation standpoint is certainly to be evaluated and addressed, but likely it would be a case of exposing a user value to the plugin capability in which you could decide based upon the user or data about the user, how you want to or what you want to expose to that given user. What is the release cycle for the plugins that were previously part of the Morpheus install? such as info blocks as the example. So certainly I want to ensure there's clarity. The integrations that have been part of the Morpheus platform, the core integrations, will continue to ship with the platform, will continue to receive updates. So as an example, when you upgrade, or if you've upgraded to 6.0.2, those will be automatically included as part of the process. And so those, in many cases, will follow the same release cycle that's previously been done in alignment with releases of the Morpheus platform. But as I said, it does give us the ability to be able to essentially release those out of band from the Morpheus platform installation itself. And I know one of the things that is being added to the platform is the ability to go on that plugin section and then be able to do things like check for updates to see if there are any new updates of the plugins without necessarily having to go directly to share.morpheusdata.com to be made aware of any updates to plugins. Question about support for VMware Tanzu as part of Brownfield. Technically, VMware Tanzu clusters, or TKG clusters, would be supported as external Kubernetes clusters and could be brought in from a visibility standpoint into the Morpheus platform, as well as some of the various administrative operations that are Kubernetes specific, not necessarily VMware Tanzu specific constructs, but things like namespaces, service accounts, so forth and so on, would be available as part of that discovery. All right, let's see. All right, trying to grab a couple more questions before we jump on to container management. Is support for Python virtual environment for Ansible integration in the 6.x roadmap? Not on the immediate roadmap that I have seen. Certainly it's something that has been talked about and discussed, but not on the immediate 6.x roadmap. Certainly that's one of the, an item that would be worthwhile putting into the community forum as an idea, and seeing about community support for adding that support of that capability. All right, let's jump to container management. I want to be mindful of people's time. We've got a few more minutes. Container management. So the Morpheus platform does support the ability to be able to integrate with Docker clusters as well as Kubernetes clusters. So approval policies have been added for clusters into the Morpheus platform. And so it's not distinct policies. So there you can specify that, I want a cluster to require an approval before provisioning, as well as before deletion and various operations from a platform standpoint. Morpheus platform does include a Kubernetes distribution out of the box, termed as MKS. There's now the ability to be able to upgrade an existing MKS cluster utilizing the Morpheus UI or the REST API within the platform. And then finally, support has been added for Kubernetes version 1.26 to the MKS platform or the distribution. And so when you go to provision a Kubernetes cluster, you can select the MKS Kubernetes 1.26 cluster layout for provisioning or deployment. All right, last section, IT service management. There's been a number of updates to the ITSM integration capabilities within the Morpheus platform, such as support for OAuth authentication for ServiceNow integration in the Morpheus platform, the ability to be able to also pass additional metadata, in particular custom options that are defined for a given request from Morpheus to ServiceNow for use in approval workflows in particular. And then finally, a syncing of metadata between items ordered via the ServiceNow self-service catalog down into Morpheus for correlation purposes, where there's a mechanism to better tie together resources provisioned via the ServiceNow catalog integration and the Morpheus platform as part of the process. All right, so that covers the bulk of the content from a 6.0 LTS release standpoint. So as I said, these are features that are new to the LTS release or branch of the Morpheus platform that were not available in the previous LTS release. Certainly, this is not all inclusive of every single feature or fix or update that was made in this particular LTS, but it does cover a large handful of it. I believe at least something like 50 plus new features within the Morpheus platform or updates or enhancements. Definitely appreciate the time and everyone jumping on. I will go through some more of these questions, certainly as many as I possibly can. But if I do not get to your question, certainly feel free to either ask it in the community forum, reach out to your account team or your account manager, as well as options available. All right, so let's take a look at some of these questions and see how many I can answer. Do we have the ability to customize the workflow that gets kicked off in ServiceNow when utilizing the plugin? Yes, there's the ability to be able to customize the workflow for the process that gets kicked off. So the question essentially is, Morpheus includes a ServiceNow catalog integration in which we can expose Morpheus catalog items into ServiceNow's self-service catalog. And then when the end user goes to provision the catalog item via ServiceNow, the inputs and options and all those various things are essentially those that are in Morpheus. When that provisioning happens, it kicks off the workflow that then talks to the Morpheus deployment to actually perform the operations on the back end. So that is available. That was technically available in previous versions of the catalog integration, as well as the Morpheus platform. Those are actually specified on the individual catalog item on the ServiceNow side. So it's technically possible. Now, in terms of, I believe, setting the default workflow for all net new catalog items that are pushed, I don't know if that's possible yet. That would be something I have to dig into. Any new ITSM integrations planned to add, such as Remedy? So technically, there is an ITSM integration for Remedy now. I know it is not inclusive of the same feature set that is available for ServiceNow. So that would definitely be something if there's something in particular that you're looking as far as the Remedy integration, then that would definitely be something either touch bases with your account team or certainly post an idea to the community forum at discuss.morpheusdata.com. Question about if I provision an XaaS instance, for example, a Dropbox folder, is it considered as a workload element? At the moment, it is considered a workload element when you provision an XaaS object. It is essentially the same as an instance that is provisioned through the Morpheus platform. So it would count as a workload element within the Morpheus platform. Can Morpheus pass ServiceNow workflow parameters when it kicks off a ServiceNow workflow? Morpheus pass. Reading the question, trying to understand what's being asked to be passed. So Morpheus parameters. Yes, so that was what was discussed, in particular as it relates to the custom options. So I believe we're talking about all right, so I think the answer is yes. Yeah, certainly that would be something to check with your account team. I think the answer is yes to that, but I want to make sure I'm understanding the question correctly. Are fixes in LTS ported to standard branch at the same time? The answer to that would be yes. So as an example, next month, when there is a release of 6.0.3, which is the LTS release, if I'm not mistaken, for next month, the fixes that are made to that will be most of the fixes that as far as I'm aware, will be put into the 6.1.1 release of the Morpheus platform. So that's been the major goal and focus as it relates to the updates or changes to the release cycle, is to both allow for there to be 2 LTS releases in a given year, but also to have the standard release of the platform apply to a more rigorous cadence from a release standpoint, to ensure that those customers that do want to utilize the standard release of the platform do get some of those same benefits that are available utilizing the LTS release of the platform. Do we have any learn instances where I can go and explore the capabilities? So I'm assuming this is in reference to the latest LTS of the Morpheus platform. So we do not have any hosted instances of the Morpheus platform. There is the community edition, which can be downloaded and installed on any Linux distribution, whether it be in your own home lab or you spin up an instance in AWS or Azure or wherever it might be, to kick the tires on the new features of the Morpheus platform. All right, I know we are at the top of the hour. I'm going to keep going and answering questions. Certainly feel free, those that do need to drop, feel free to drop. I'm going to try to go through a few more questions and answer them as much as possible. But certainly, as I said, the community forum at discussmorpheusdata.com is a great place to ask questions, as well as checking in with your account manager about the new features or capabilities within the latest LTS of the Morpheus platform. All right, can we upgrade from a standard deployment to an LTS deployment without standing up a new device and migrating the database? Yes, so that is the common path from a release standpoint, is that if you're on the standard, you're going to upgrade to the latest LTS possibly. So that's the path. The one caveat to consider would be is a desire to potentially switch from that LTS to a standard release of the platform. So there's some caveats there that to be aware of to ensure that that will be successful. So standard to LTS should be totally fine without any issues. Looking to go from standard or LTS to another standard, certainly that would be something to certainly be mindful of and connect with support to ensure that that is a supported path, depending upon the specific versions that you're looking to migrate or update to. Notice that there were more contributors than just Martez to the Morpheus Terraform provider. Does that imply that the release cadence might be improving? Yes. So there's a goal to continue to reduce the amount of time between given releases of the Morpheus Terraform provider. So certainly want to get a number of features in place as we continue to add new releases, but certainly do want to as fixes need to be added to the Terraform provider to get those out the door as quickly as possible for our users to take advantage of it. Can retry, referring to the automation retry, be done from the beginning or the current point? So in the case of the automation retry as it relates to a workflow, it would be performed on the failing automation task. So what that would allow is, let's say if the 5th task as part of the process or the workflow were to fail, that's where essentially it would stop. And that's where I would go and retry that individual task, and then it would kick off from that particular process. As it relates to going back to the beginning, it would not go back to the beginning. It would continue on from that current point. So it would retry the existing task that has failed, and then proceed on to the remaining tasks that are to be completed. So certainly something that you would need to be accommodating for as you develop your automation to ensure that there is not per se a need to have to go back to the beginning to ensure that something has been performed adequately. Can we assign permissions to things such as tasks and workflows based on the new tagging functionality? So I'm assuming the tagging refers to the object labels. So that is not possible to be able to assign permissions based upon the labels. I think I know where the question is headed or intended. I know particularly for automation tasks and labels to be able to utilize those labels in terms of granting access on a given instance type or object. But no, it is not currently possible to assign permissions based upon object labels. Are there any plans for plugins or functionalities that we can import already created VMs in Azure to the Morpheus platform? So Morpheus platform does natively support the ability to be able to discover existing or already created workloads. When you add the cloud integration into the platform, there's the ability to be able to discover existing workloads. Now, as it relates to specifics about certain operations that you might want to perform during the discovery process, those would currently need to be performed out of band via a separate process. So you may have a script that does certain things to the particular workloads after they've been discovered via the Morpheus platform to perform certain operations from an operational standpoint that are most applicable to your environment. But the platform does support the ability to be able to discover existing workloads within the cloud environments. Let's see. I'm going to grab a few of the questions. All right, where can we get more information on Morpheus support for task multi-tenancy? As I said, definitely reach out to your account team or your account manager if you want a deeper dive into some of those facets or aspects. But for all intents and purposes, is the same as what's currently been available for automation workflows as it relates to being able to expose those to subtenants within the Morpheus platform. It's just now automation tasks have that capability or that setting available to specify that you want it either public or you want it to private, and then specify the particular tenants that you want to share that automation task with. It's a question about Power VC. So some users or customers have may have seen that there is a Power VC cloud integration within the Morpheus platform. In many ways, that is still an alpha support, so to speak, and is currently being developed and iterated on. So that is why there's really no documentation about it. Certainly, that would be something that I would encourage you to reach out to your account team, account manager, about specifics as it relates to Power VC, if there's an interest in that, or your Morpheus contact, if there is a desire to dig further into Power VC support or integration within the Morpheus platform. Let's take a look. Still a few more questions. So I'll probably go through about another 4 or 5 more questions as we have availability. Let's see. A question about when is Percona ExtraDB Cluster 8 going to be supported? So as I mentioned during the initial discussion about the MySQL 8 support, really it's focused on ensuring that on the Percona side, they are exposing or utilizing versions of MySQL that do not have, in particular, performance issues. I believe the main issue has been in some of the versions of MySQL 8 is that there are memory leaks, which can cause crashes from a performance standpoint. So unfortunately, that's most of that's really out of our hands. Really, it's for us, it's ensuring that we're testing and validating versions of Percona that are being added or being released to determine whether we can really reasonably support it without our customers facing major impact from a crash of the database. So definitely something that I would stay connected to my account team to see if there are any updates from that standpoint. But unfortunately, at the moment, I do not have any further updates as it relates to the Percona Extra DB support for MySQL 8. Our API is going to be published for managing DNS plugins. So I'm assuming DNS integrations within the platform. I believe those are available already. Certainly that's be something that I have to check on. But I believe similar to some of the other ones, I think that's exposed. But I could be incorrect because I know that I think some of the IPAM integrations were just recently exposed from an API endpoint standpoint. So certainly if it's not available now, that would be something I would check with your account team, as well as add an idea to the community forum discuss.morpheusdata.com for us to be able to address that gap in terms of API support. Can automation be run conditionally on an asset? If applying a STIG to all operational servers and it already has been applied to one server, can we check the server to see if it's already been run and skip the STIG update? So essentially conditional execution. At the moment, it's really something that you would have to push down as your automation more than anything else. Because you would have to have some state reference to that particular data as it relates to if the task has already been ran or doesn't need to be ran. So that in that case, you would, if you're doing just scripting, there would need to be item potency, or from typically a configuration management standpoint, oftentimes that's built in many ways to many of the objects and references. So that would be something that you would have to handle in your automation to, when it reaches out to the server or to the workload, to perform a check of whether a certain operation needs to be performed or not. And depending upon the type of automation that could, in theory, be passed to a subsequent task, that's not going to control whether it's actually executed or not from a Morpheus standpoint, but that could be utilized to control whether the actual automation executes or not. And from a Morpheus standpoint, it'll execute the automation, and maybe the automation just simply says, okay, the flag that I was expecting has been set, so I'm not going to go down this path of executing the actual remediation, as an example. Question about which OpenStack versions does Morpheus platform support? From our standpoint, it's typically the latest version of OpenStack, unless there are identified issues with a given OpenStack version. All right, gonna go for a few more minutes, and then gonna wrap things up. Let's take a look. Question about the ability to write conditional logic in the automation scripts to allow programmatic retry. So yes, there are plans in the upcoming roadmap to natively support conditional logic, or essentially branching within workflows to allow you to be able to essentially specify if-else conditions to determine that you might want to go down path A or that you want to go down path B, as an example, as part of the execution of that automation. As it relates to some of those other facets from a retry or back off standpoint, certainly be some things we'd have to look into, but nothing planned on the immediate roadmap as of now. Questions about the ability to lock an instance in order to prevent multiple workflows or tasks from operating or making changes to a specific instance at one time. There's currently not the ability to be able to do that natively within the Morpheus platform. At the moment, that would have to be pushed down into the automation that you developed, such as potentially the first task in a workflow. Maybe do something like determine a workload's lock status, and you may utilize something like a key value store for storage of that particular lock status to determine whether the instance is locked from automation. So as I said, certainly that would be something that you'd have to handle in your automation, and the Morpheus platform does not natively support that. Customizable dashboards were mentioned. The question about the JavaScript framework that is supported. So Morpheus is going to support HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So technically, you can expose whatever capability you want from a JavaScript standpoint, as far as I'm aware, that can be accessible from the Morpheus platform. So either bundled inside of your plugin or reachable via something like a CDN to be able to leverage that. I know I utilize various libraries as part of some of the plugins that I built out, even with things like custom reports or instance tab, UI tab extensions or plugins in the platform. All right, let's take a look. Trying to get through a few of the questions. This question about subtenant role management from the master tenant. So certainly that could be something to delve a little deeper with your account manager or your technical team. But really, it's focused on allowing from the master tenant the ability to be able to update, modify, and manage those roles without having to delve into the subtenant as part of the process. Question about any URL where I can find the updates in a new version. As I said, I will, in particular, add this slide deck to, well, it might not be this particular slide deck, but it will be the slide deck. It might not be the specific link to the slide deck. It might be part of a broader web page that is available as far as information about what's available in the new version. So as I said, YouTube video will be posted within a day or two, and then we'll get this content, as well as there'll be some additional content available to those that are interested in what's new. All right, go through probably one or two more questions, and then we will wrap up. A question about workflows and tasks. Can they now be created and have it available only to certain types of Morpheus instances? So that is a really great question. So the idea is that if I have certain tasks that, let's see, as an example, are for SQL, I only want when the user goes to manage or perform operations or utilize task for a given instance type to be able to only see those that are applicable to that. Object labels were essentially the first part of that process. So it is not currently available to be able to scope those tasks or workflows to a given instance type, but that is something that has been identified as a roadmap item. Is service catalog item quantity going to be able to be disabled on a per catalog item level? Yes, so it's actually the inverse. it would need to be enabled on a per catalog item level. So when you go to create a new catalog item, what you'll be provided with is the ability to have a checkbox that says allow quantity. And so that would be the determining factor as to whether a user can select multiple instances of a given catalog item. In the future, will Morpheus data support the ability to be able to connect to some traditional storage via API? Depends on what you're looking from an integration standpoint. So the platform currently does have the ability to be able to add certain types of storage servers into the Morpheus platform, but certainly also has the ability to be able to tie in or integrate with storage solutions via the API, utilizing things like the automation task and workflows capability within the Morpheus platform. Whether it's an Ansible playbook or Python script or any of the various other types of automation capabilities that the Morpheus platform has. All right, I will grab one more question and then we will wrap up. Definitely would have loved to have tackled all the questions, but certainly, as I said, feel free to either post a question if it's applicable to all users of the Morpheus platform in the community forum, discuss.morpheusdata.com, or certainly reach out to your account manager with any additional questions. Question about contribution guidelines added to the Terraform provider repo. So I will look to add contribution guidelines to that repo as well. So we've got question is, how are input prompts handled on multi-instance catalog items? So I'm assuming when referencing that you want to order multiple instantiations of a catalog item. So that's where you're gonna have to get into the case of ensuring that the inputs that need to be unique do align from a sequencing standpoint. So when you go to order the catalog item, ensuring that the particular resource has sequencing, let's say for the host name, to ensure there aren't any duplicates, that's in place. But for the other inputs, I believe it would essentially be the input that's been specified is what's going to be applied. So there's definitely some consideration that needs to be made in terms of whether a catalog item should support multiple copies at a time, given whatever the inputs that you need to specify are. All right, I definitely appreciate the questions. But at this time, we're gonna have to jump. But I do definitely appreciate everyone hanging out. And as I said, either the community forum or your local account team or your account manager, as far as any of the outstanding questions or anything else you want to delve a little deeper into about the 6.0 LTS that we're very excited for our customers to get in their hands and try out and see the benefit.